Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Raisa Lopez from Channel Sales and Marketing at IIG. We're very excited to have you with us today as we present our container tracking module for Acumatica, AcuContainer. AcuContainer is certified and always current, and you can find pricing on the Acumatica price list. Before we get started, just wanted to share a little bit about us. We do have 30 years of experience in the ERP space and with ISV products. We have successfully developed 17 enhancements for Acumatica, 10 of which are certified and on the price list. And two of our modules were acquired by Acumatica. That was our Gmail integration, AcuGmail, and Acumatica's point of sale. We are partnered with over 100 different Acumatica resellers all over the world. We offer support with marketing, discovery, demos, and implementation as well. And we also offer custom programming for projects big and small. And we have over 1,000 different clients that we support worldwide. And we are a Gold Acumatica partner. We want to invite you to check out our website where you can find many reviews from customers and partners that we work with. Okay, and we want to thank you again for making the time to join us today and learn a little bit about our enhancement. And we want to encourage you to type your questions in. There's a question box on the top right corner, and we will address the questions at the end of the call. So with that being said, I will pass you over to Alec, our Chief Solutions Architect.
Great, thank you, Risa. So thank you for joining us. What I'm going to do is go over a PowerPoint presentation that should only take a few minutes, and after that, I'll show you the actual program. So as Risa mentioned, we are an ISV, and we publish very many enhancements for Acumatica. Here are some that are on Acumatica price list and some others that we sell directly. What AcuContainer does, it basically fills a gap, a void between the time when you approve the purchase orders until you receive them in your warehouse. We let you create what's called a container transaction and load into that container transaction a complete PO, lines of a PO, or partial quantity of a PO line. And we'll manage the status of that container. We'll show you where it is on the water. As you get your landed cost invoices, we let you enter those landed cost invoices into the container transaction. So you don't have to wait until the product lands in your warehouse before you enter your costs and allocate them to the line item on the container. You just enter the lines, the landed cost lines. You enter if you paid for it. We'll create the prepayment transaction and link that prepayment entry to the invoice once you get the invoice from the customer and so forth. For some of you that have ownership of the product when the broker picks it up from the factory floor, we let you receive that product into an in-transit warehouse. So in-transit warehouses are set up either by vendor, by destination warehouse, and what the system does, it receives the inventory in that warehouse so you can basically print your valuation report. It shows up in the GL. And once you receive the product in your main warehouse, we completely reverse out that in-transit posting. So you basically end up having in the in-transit warehouse only the products that are in the container coming your way. We will auto-calculate your duty and tariff for you. We let you link to each item a custom classification code, and based on that, you enter the duty and tariff by country, and we'll auto-calculate those for you. We have an optional QC integration, so if you want to perform some QCs, we could do that for you as well. When products are received from the vendor, it's smart enough to know, whether you want to do a sample a QC or you want to basically set up a vendor. So once you pass the QC, you don't have to QC products received from that vendor for so many days. We have integrations with sea rates, expeditor, and vessel finders. So each one of them charges a few cents and basically gives you the ability to know where that vessel is on the water. And, so what happens there is that you could set up a job. So once a day or once twice a week, it goes and updates where the vessel is. Or as needed in the container record, you can click on an update location and it'll basically get the location and show you where that is. The other thing we do, we actually allow you to allocate the quantity that is in the container to different sales orders in the system. So if you have quantity of 400 is coming, the sales order entry person can click on availability, access the container, and allocate so many of that inventory that is underwater or is being created and loaded into a container to the sales order. Now, of course, that's a setting by user access, right? So you only folks that are authorized to do that will be able to do that. We also let you create what's called a sales order container. So if you have products that you're shipping from one warehouse to the other, as you can load into the container. So there, from the shipments that are created, you have the ability to load shipments into a container. So you can print a bill of lading like document showing everything that is going from East Coast to West Coast. Or if you're sending a container once a week to Canada or Brazil, you could load all those items into the container and track the status of it. So here are some preference setting, container preferences, things like, whether you want to auto calculate duty and tariff. We also give you the ability to get the actual or estimated date of receipt from products like C rate and go and update in your purchase order lines the promise date or request dates based on what you've gotten from there, and some other settings that become enabled uh, based on settings here. So this, we're looking at the stock item. So this is the stock item form of Acumatica. Here's the custom classification code that we add. And once you click on this edit mark icon, we bring up this screen. So you'll see the custom classification code that is assigned to that item, what the duty percent is and what the tariff is by country. Here we're looking at a container transaction. Again, you can create the container transaction and load into it items that are coming your way. Now containers have statuses, so you can use it to plan what the broker should send to you. So you can come in here and load lines from POs, quantities from POs, and have your broker see it and load accordingly these items, that container that is coming your way. Notice that we show you some total weight, total volume, and there is also a container type that tells you the volume, and we'll show things in a different color if you like, if the total of what you're putting into that container is more than the volume. It's just some informational things so you could see and do what make some changes. Notice that in the container, you can not only load PO lines, you can also load items from sales order lines. So if you're treating the broker in China also as a warehouse and some product you receive there and you want to ship from there, you can also add those lines as transfer sales orders. So you load into a container transaction either information from POs or transfer sales orders. In this tab, dates, we have a whole lot of information that you entered, expected or actual departure, arrival date, factory ready date, cargo ready date, and so forth and so on. And you could create business events in Acumatica that send email to appropriate individuals based on the settings. So if the expected departure, his date has changed and the status isn't, still in planning, you can get an email. Or if the same thing here, the actual departure date is not entered and you're past the expected departure date, you can send an email saying 4 days has passed, why isn't there an actual departure date entered? So a lot of this information could be used to create notifications, generic inquiries, and things of that sort. The landed cost tab is when you enter your landed cost information. And if you prepaid to the vendor, there's an action here that says create the prepayment. It creates a prepayment, stores a prepayment for that vendor that you've entered here. And basically what happens when you get the actual invoice based on the invoice number, it would match that payment to the invoice that generated. This is the screen where it shows you the vessel info. So here, in this example, you will integrating with Vessel Finder. It shows you where that vessel is. So you could do that again by clicking on Update Vessel Info or setting an automated job. So twice a week, it checks to see where the vessel is. And so when someone accesses it, they see it on the water where it is and so forth and so on. So a document that you can print if you want to leave with the folks in the warehouse to know what's coming in that container. This is the program that you run that posts the inventory to the in-transit warehouse. Again, we put inventory into in-transit warehouse at the quantities that you've said it's in the container, and then we will take it out of this warehouse once you receive it in your main warehouse. And of course, we'll show you IM transaction, the inventory management receipt transaction, the issue transactions at any time for that container. So you'll see what was used to do that. The tally entry gives you the ability when you receive the product in the warehouse, open it up and have folks in the warehouse just enter what was in the container. So they do this without having access to the vendor, the costing information and so forth. And what they've entered here as what they've received in that container is then imported into the container, and based on those, we generate the receipt transactions. You could also have landed costs that apply to multiple containers. Enter the containers here, enter the landed cost, and we'll take that entered cost and apply it to every item in these containers. So that also happens. This is the landed cost tab, so these amounts are allocated to every container entered in there. Of course, then when you receive the product in your warehouse, you click on generate PO receipt. It generates a PO receipt, one per vendor, because you can have in a container products coming from multiple vendors, and we will generate one PO receipt per vendor in that container and generate the landed cost entries again for the product that is in that container. If you want to do QC function, this is where by item you've entered what QC needs to be performed and the information that is received. Part of the PO receipt, instead of going into the location specified in the stock item, will go into the QC location. Once you complete the QC, they're transferred to the main location. This is where in the inventory allocation detail, we will show you what's coming your way, total on PO containers, and the container tab, each container, what's in that container. And as I mentioned, as you click on any one of these lines, you'll have the ability to allocate the quantity to different sales orders. And once you receive the product, we'll go and mark those sales order lines as allocated in the line detail tab of the sales order. Sales order container, again, if you shipping products from one warehouse to the other or shipping product once a week to a different country or different location, you could do that, and you load items into from sales order shipments. So you can print this sales order container and know what's in that container going to that location. So quick overview, PowerPoint based, and now we're going to start looking at the program to do the demonstration. So what I've done, I've created one purchase order. I'm going to create a second purchase order to show you the process. So here I'm going to enter a couple of items in this purchase order. So again, products are available to be loaded into the container once they're approved. Now, of course, based on your Acumatica setting, you may have an approval step or not have an approval step. But once the product is received and once the PO is approved, then we can load it into the PO container. So do you have PO number 1185? Earlier, I also created 1184. So we're going to be loading them into the container. Notice that while we're in this screen, you could do things like if these products are in a container and you happen to come to the PO screen, you could click on it and line item by line item, see what containers that product is in. It will display that to you. So now we come to the pure container. So this is the generic inquiry that is available. You can see what's in transit, what's on hold, what's receiving next week, or all records, and you can create more of these views here. If I click on the click plus sign, I'll be adding a new container transaction to the system. Now, vendor number is optional because we allow you to receive products from multiple vendors into a container. All the vendor number entry does when you're selecting a POs, it will filter and only show products from that vendor. So the vendor, the container number, container status user definable again could be used as part of your generic inquiries and so forth. So it's in the planning. Freight forwarder. We do things like when you click on open freight forwarder, if there's a link set up to that freight forwarder in the freight forwarder maintenance, we will bring up the website and we'll populate the container number there if you wanted to see that. Country code used for tariff calculation, container type, and logistic company. Destination warehouse, which is used as part of setting up the in-transit warehouse, if that's what you're going to do. The MMSI code is used by the C-rate vessel finder to know exactly what vessel number identifies them, and of course the description. Now, it may make sense to also let you know that we manage all the communications here. So if you create an activity, if you're working with the broker, if you're sending an email to the vendor regarding this container, it's all tracked in here, so you'll have ability to view it. Also, there's a setting in PO preferences that copies the notes from the POs into the container. So if you want to do that, so you can enter notes, you can have attachment, your commercial invoices, your custom documents, you could all be attached to this. So 6 months later, you can come back and look at a container and see all the communications you've had with the broker, vendor, all the documents that you received, all with their alerts and notifications and so forth, etc. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to click on Add PO line. The difference between Add PO and PO line is in Add PO lines, we show you every line and you decide line item by line item, which items are coming your way. Otherwise, Add PO just shows you the PO. Two check boxes here to set. One basically says we're selecting this line, and one lets you specify whether that quantity should be loaded as the quantity that is coming in that container. So I selected those. I could do add and close, and it would basically load it in. Notice that we also give you the ability to load information from an Excel. So if you have a relation with your broker and broker can send you an Excel that contains the information that is coming your way, you can load that in there because we have customers with 100, 200 lines in a container that comes to them from an Excel, and they're able to load that. So far we've selected some lines. Some lines got loaded in here. Notice that there's additional information stored at the line item level, invoice, UPC code, and so forth and so on. So you could track. Attachments could be attached to the line item. Notes could be entered here as well as at the summary level. So one of the things I want to show you is that we've also calculated customs and tariff, and the custom and tariff gets calculated. If I click on the link and bring up the stock item form in Acumatica, you would see that we've added that field, this field here, custom classification. If you click on it, you basically are able to see for that custom classification code what the tariff is, what the duty percent is, and we use that to auto calculate the duty and tariff and load them into this tab. So if you needed to add another landed cost, you just select the landed cost. All Acumatica landed costs are available here. And you'll see that this would go in, this entry would go in. that insurance and get allocated to line 2. So here on the line, you have amount allocated. This will be the insurance, tariff, and the duty. They all, so I guess this item has a tariff. This item does not have a tariff. So for the from China, and of course the insurance gets allocated, and anything new you enter here would get allocated again, harbor maintenance fee or whatever you want to enter. Notice that if you prepaid for it, you can enter the prepayment reference number and so forth, and we'll create the prepayment when you run the create payment link to the vendor that is on the line. So when you get the invoice, and all of it in the invoice transaction, you can link to it. So far, we've added another entry, so that gets added to the amount allocated. As I mentioned, you can also load items into the container from SO type sales orders or transfer type sales orders. So if you, again, treat the broker as a warehouse and receive some products into that location, you could load that from the transfer sales order into here. So a few entries in the landed cost tab. Uh, This, if it is a drop ship, you can enter the customer number and sales order number, and it will basically be there. Here, we're going to start entering some information. So it's supposed to leave at 27. It's supposed to get here at 4:15. Expected date of departure, 03/27, 2024. 0450, okay, 2024. I guess there was a problem. And of course, you enter the actual, you come back at any time if you need to change the status, if it goes from planning on foreign dock or overseas transportation, you can change those. If you get an actual date, maybe they come in and say, well, you know what, on 3/28, 2024, it actually left. Expected date, factory ready date, all of these cargo ready date, all of these are fields that are available to you. And of course, let's say if we got here 20 before 2024, fields become available, custom number, um, and on and on. So again, gives you visibility over where these products are, all of these products. When you access the inventory allocation screen of Acumatica, you will see what's in the containers, and you'll see the specific container numbers, and you'll have the ability to click on a container and go see the information in that container and start allocating the inventory to the different sales orders that are in the system. Allocate sales orders. So if you have sales orders that you do not have inventory for, once container transaction is generated, you can allocate the quantity. As I mentioned, uh, this information, of course, is accessed from the sales order entry program based on user access rather when they click on item availability. So far we've seen how this information shows, and I'm gonna now go in and post to in transit warehouse, which is the next thing you can do. So again, completely optional. The same thing with auto calculation of duty and tariff. Here, if I wanted to create the let's go back and look at our container. Probably we left it on hold. That's why it's not showing up here. So before you can basically process the container, it needs to be removed off the hold. So I just gonna do that, and then gonna go back to the in transit register. And now I can select that container. And notice that it has quantities that we can see in here. And once I click on the register, it would go ahead and move those quantities that I had in that container to the it would show me the transactions that got generated for it, and on and on. And so basically, we'll be able to process them and process the things here. So the next thing that we need to do uh, is to the container. 247. My mouse was acting up, so we selected 247. So now it gets loaded in here. So basically it shows me that for this container, these items are not posted to the in-transit warehouse. So when I click on register, I noticed that those quantities got moved to the in-transit. So if I click on the IN document, I will see the receipt document generated for putting those inventories into in-transit warehouse. So that's the in-transit warehouse created. Warehouse is called in-transit receiving location. And again, this would completely get reversed when you issue the product out. Now, we give you the ability when you post to in-transit also include the landed cost entries into that posting to the in-transit warehouse or not. So going back to our PO container, you'll be able to basically change the status, add additional landed costs, add additional fields to this data to these screens. Again, business events where it shows you where the payment due date is getting close or passing, shipment window, start date, end date. All of these are things that you could use this information to manage your processes, activities, that you're creating an email to the broker or an event or creating a task for someone to make sure the custom documents are completed and worked on. So then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do tally entry, which basically says for that container 247, what are the quantities that I received. So I can do a complete ship and by exception, change the quantities, or I can just go through item by item, enter what I got in. And then in my container transaction, I have the ability to import tally quantity. So then, that's what folks counted. Now, when we create the PO receipt, we will create it for the tally quantity, but when we reverse the in transit, we will fully reverse what we put into in transit warehouse. So that gets completely reversed out at that time. So again, the in transit would have what you've specified coming your way, but the receipt would be generated based on the tally quantity that you've entered. The other program that I want to show you is distribution, which is the program that you come to if you have an expense that applies to more than one container. You can enter those. You can say these two containers, this expense applies to them. And we'll go ahead and divide that $1,000 to all the items into this container for you. So that just makes it easier if you have a broker expense or an insurance that is for all the containers for the month, you can just go enter it in there and we will allocate it accordingly. So uh, our life comes to the end when we generate the PO receipt. So when the container is received and you done your tally into your distributions, you click on enter PO receipt. And now we would go ahead and create the PO receipt document. Again, one per vendor, and gets generated here. And once you remove it and release it, is well, that's when basically the container is closed, landed cost transactions are generated in Acumatica. So again, we fill the gap between the point where you approve the PO until to receive it, and then once you receive it, everything is handed over to Acumatica. And of course, that container transaction is available for historical views if you want to go see what you had communicated, and any other information. So that's a quick overview of the container management. As I mentioned, uh, it provides information, visibility over the inventory, and it could work both for the sales order side and the PO side. So, Raisa, if there are any questions I can answer about what we demonstrated.
Thank you, Alec. And it doesn't look like we have any questions here.
Great.
No questions. Okay. So thank you everybody for your time. I will be sending a recording of this via email, and feel free to respond with any questions. And if you'd like to get together and discuss any opportunity you may have, we'll be very happy to do so. And thank you again for your time, and have a great rest of your day.
Great. Thank you.